What's up guys, my name is Amir, welcome back to the channel. And at the end of last year, we saw the Vivo X200 Pro and it was loved by many. It got a lot of praise internationally. Even Mr. Who's the Boss gave it a bunch of awards in his 2024 Smartphone Awards video. But let's be honest, the $1,000+ price tag isn't for everyone. So now Vivo has brought in a sort of baby version of that phone for that flagship-like experience, but in a more compact body and a lower price point. This is the Vivo X200 FE, which I'm going to be unboxing in today's video. And just like the Pro model, the camera system here was developed in collaboration with Zeiss. And despite its compact form factor, we have a surprisingly massive battery here. There's a powerful processor, flagship-grade display, and loads of other features which we'll explore in today's video. As for the price, I don't really have any confirmation here because we're dealing with a whole bunch of different regions and I'm not really sure where you're watching this video, but you can expect a price point of $750 to $800 depending on where you're watching this video. So let's now quickly get into this unboxing. Just looking at the slim box, you can tell that this is one of Vivo's flagship tier devices. The variant we've got here has 12 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. So let's peek inside the box. And here it is, the X200 FE itself. And wow, the moment I picked it up, I felt that cool touch of glass and metal, which instantly screams premium. Definitely feels like a flagship, although we'll have to take a closer look at the materials. And honestly, looking at the size, it's kind of hard to believe there's a 6,500 mAh battery packed inside this tiny body. But before we dive into the phone, let's check out the rest of the box contents. So you get a SIM ejector tool, some paperwork, and a soft matte silicone case. Here's how it looks on the phone. And finally, we have the power brick and charging cable, which supports 90 watts of Vivo flash charging. So let's now take a closer look at this phone. The back here is made of glass and the frame is aluminum. And on the back, we have that soft touch satin matte finish, which honestly is one of my favorite materials on any phone. In fact, it's now become one of my all-time favorite materials, period. I'm actually building a new house and the kitchen cabinets are all in this soft touch matte glass. I just love it. The design language here is clean and modern, but it's also available in other colors, all pastel like yellow, pink, and blue, and all with that sweet satin matte finish. And size-wise, this is definitely a compact phone. Although when you look at it side by side with Samsung's Galaxy S25, the size here is almost identical. On the front, you get Gorilla Shield glass. Not sure what's on the back, but the phone has military-grade drop resistance and is SGS triple certified, so Vivo's definitely claiming it's built to last. It's also rated IP68 and 69 for dust and water resistance. On the back, we have the camera module, which is pill-shaped with that Zeiss branding. And yes, the bump is noticeable. But if this camera performs anything like the X200 Pro, I doubt people are going to mind this camera bump. And obviously, once you use the case, the bump stops being an issue. Vivo's gone for a really sleek and compact design this time. The thickness is just 7.9 millimeters, which is impressive given the huge battery. And the weight's also light, just 186 grams. The only issue I have here is with the back. I really wish this was Gorilla Glass Victus Plus. Moving on to the display, it's a cute little 6.31-inch screen. I'm saying cute little because I'm used to huge 6.9-inch screens at this point. But don't let the small size fool you because the specs here are pretty strong. By the way, this time Zeiss has also helped in tuning this display. Vivo are calling it the Zeiss Master Color display, which according to them is incredibly color accurate and designed so that you're accurately able to see your photos and videos. It's a P-OLED panel with 1.5K resolution, giving you a super crisp 460 ppi. Now, these P-OLED panels are generally considered as being more durable. We usually see them in folding phones. It basically uses plastic instead of glass. The refresh rate here is 120 Hz and it's an LTPO panel, which means it can dynamically switch between 120, 90, 72, and 60 Hz to save battery. This adaptive refresh rate tech is definitely a premium feature. We normally see them in expensive high-end phones, although higher-end phones can take the refresh rate down to 1 Hz. Whereas this one is capped at 60. Even so, I appreciate the LTPO technology. There's also HDR10 Plus support, so if you're into watching Netflix movies on your phone, this one's going to look great. This display also gets really bright, hitting a peak of 5,000 nits, so visibility on sunny days won't be a problem. There's an in-display fingerprint sensor, though it's optical, not ultrasonic like we saw in the Pro model. I would have really preferred ultrasonic here, but this one still works well and unlocks quickly enough. The bezels here are also impressively slim compared side by side with something like the Galaxy S25, and you'll see just how tight the borders are. So yeah, the display here feels every bit like a flagship display. All in all, I like this display. Vibrant colors, smooth performance. And yes, you also get stereo speakers in this phone, which is expected at this price point, but even then, when I compared these speakers to my Galaxy S25, the sound was surprisingly close. Decent bass, full-bodied audio. I don't think anyone's going to have issues with the media consumption experience here. Now let's move on to performance, because around this $750-ish price point, people expect flagship grade specs. I mean, we just recently saw the Nothing Phone 3 at $800. Vivo X200 FE is powered by the Dimensity 9300 Plus processor. It's one of MediaTek's top-tier 5G chipsets based on a 4nm fabrication process. You get 12 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of UFS 3.1 storage. Just a heads up though, this phone does not support any sort of SD card expansion. But with 512 gigs of storage, I don't really see that as being an issue for most people. Also, this phone supports nano SIMs and eSIMs, so if you travel a lot, that'll be useful. Now, in terms of real-world performance, I can confidently say that this phone will feel like a flagship for 99% of users. Although benchmark-wise, it does fall a bit short of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, but with a score of almost 1.9 million on Antutu, it handles heavy apps, multitasking, and gaming with ease. In day-to-day use, the phone absolutely flies. I didn't notice any lag or stutter. Just keep in mind, though, that when you're putting it through its paces, it does tend to get a little warm, but that is to be expected from a compact phone like this because of the tiny body, the smaller thermal envelope. There's just less space for the heat to escape. Usually we do see this sort of issue with most compact devices, like even my 14-inch MacBook Pro has this issue. But at the end of the day, it's not going to affect your experience much anyway, I think. And don't forget, this phone comes with a massive 6500 milliamp hour Vivo Blue Volt battery, so it lasts a long time on a single charge. Honestly, with just looking at this phone, you would never guess that it has such a huge battery. I mean, Galaxy S25 comes with only 4000 milliamp hours, so 6500 is definitely a big win here. And then the icing on the cake is that it supports 90 watts of Vivo Flash Charge. And having the charger in the box is pretty great because these days there's a not so nice trend for premium phones to skip the charger altogether. Now let's move on to one of the main features of this phone, the cameras. We've seen Vivo and Zeiss collaborate before on the Vivo X200 Pro, and in my opinion, that phone absolutely crushed it. Well, this one carries that same Zeiss branding on the camera module, and inside the app, you can switch between different picture profiles like Vivid and Zeiss Original, which personally I prefer the most. The X200 FE has a triple camera setup here on the back. There's a 50 megapixel Zeiss True Color main sensor with optical stabilization. Then there's a 50 megapixel telephoto lens, also optically stabilized. And while it might not look it, this is actually a periscope telephoto with 3x optical zoom and up to 100x digital zoom. And then there's an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera, which honestly is the one spec that didn't make sense to me when I saw the spec sheet for this phone. This really should have been a 50 megapixel sensor too. Now, I didn't get a ton of time with this phone, but in the past, we've seen that Vivo's Zeiss collaborations have done pretty well. But based on Vivo's history, the tuning and Zeiss filters are usually top tier, giving great color balance, controlled highlights, and really solid detail. Let's check out some samples here. So the samples from the main camera I really liked. What stood out most to me is the natural depth of field. These aren't portrait mode shots. These are just regular photos right from the camera. But that background blur just looks so buttery smooth. Thanks to the f1.88 aperture and a decently big sensor, I didn't see any blown out highlights or noisy shadows anywhere. And there's something about the Zeiss processing. It gives the pictures this cinematic feel, like they're straight out of a movie or something. Switching between lenses is also fairly smooth. You can tell that Vivo really tried to keep the transition between these lenses clean and color matched, at least between the main and telephoto cameras. You'll see what I mean. Moving on to the telephoto camera, we have 50 megapixels to play with here as well, and that Zeiss processing really brings out the contrast and punch. In fact, the main and telephoto cameras are so good that the 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera just can't keep up. The moment you switch to it, you feel like you've stepped into this lower res world. Honestly, if Vivo had thrown in a 50 megapixel ultra-wide here too, that would have been a winner. Alright, now let's talk about the video. So you get up to 4K at 60 FPS with the back camera, but there are a few caveats here. So when shooting at 4K 60, if you start recording videos from the main camera, it'll just digitally crop to zoom in. If you want to use a telephoto camera, you'll need to switch before you hit record. Once recording starts, you can't switch between the main and telephoto at 4K 60. If you want that smooth zoom between the main and telephoto cameras, you'll have to drop down to 4K 30 FPS. But again, no option to switch to ultra-wide here. 4K recording isn't supported on the ultra-wide camera. I mean, you need at least 8.2 million pixels or more than 8 megapixels just for it to be 4K resolution. So yeah, that's just not possible. So if you want to shoot using the ultra-wide lens, you'll have to drop all the way down to 1080p 30 FPS. So do keep these video limitations in mind. That said, when it comes to video quality, 4K just looks very clean, very sharp. The focus is very responsive. Then there's also micro movie mode where you can shoot different clips and stitch them right inside the phone. Pretty useful for quickly putting together reels or short videos. Now moving on to the front, you've got a 50 megapixel selfie camera with f2.0 aperture. It supports video recording all the way up to 4K 60 FPS, and yes, you do get that smooth transition zoom effect here as well. Vivo's selfie game in the mid-range price bracket has consistently been among the best in the industry, so I think you can expect really good results here too. Great skin tone, solid dynamic range, and good clarity. If you're someone who takes a lot of selfies or shoots a lot of selfie videos, I think you're going to like this front camera on the X200 FE. Overall, I'd say this is a very capable camera setup for both photos and videos, but for me personally, it doesn't hit the same level as the X200 Pro, but then again, this one is priced much lower, so that kind of makes sense. Now coming to the software, the X200 FE runs Android 15 out of the box with Vivo's FunTouch OS 15 layered on top. It's still Vivo's custom skin, but it's become way more minimal over the past few years. You can tell that Vivo's been nudging it toward that stock Android experience. It's still not stock Android, but it feels pretty clean, I think. And of course, it's 2025, so AI features are front and center. First off, we have Google Gemini, which you can now launch by long pressing the power button. Then you've got a bunch of other AI tools like Circle to Search, which lets you search anything directly from your screen. AI Remover, which allows you to erase unwanted objects from your photos. AI Upscale, which increases the resolution of images using smart AI, which you might need especially for the ultra-wide camera. So overall, it's a very polished software experience. In terms of updates, Vivo's promised 3 years of Android OS updates and 4 years of security patches. So guys, my first impressions of the X200 FE are that it's definitely a very interesting device. Will it match the legacy of the X200 Pro? Only time will tell. There's only a couple of things in terms of constructive criticism that I think Vivo could have done better. The first is the ultra-wide camera. I really wish there was a 50 megapixel ultra-wide camera here, especially with Vivo's Zeiss collaborations, which I think is a major win. Just like the X200 Pro, I'm super impressed with X200 FE's computational photography and post-processing. And second, Gorilla Glass Victus Plus on the back would have been a very nice addition to this phone. A lot of people expect that on flagship phones these days. Other than that, I love the glass and metal build, the flagship level processor, this beautiful POLED display, and the combo of a compact body with a huge battery is just overall a nice phone, I think. Now, I want to know what you guys thought of the Vivo X200 FE. Please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like. If you're new here, consider subscribing. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.